should the judge who's been assigned the Hegseth case, Judge Boasberg, should he recuse himself from that case? And understand the standard, I know you do, Speaker. The standard is a reasonable person. Would a reasonable person believe that this judge can't be impartial with this case? And I would just remind you of a couple things. This is the judge who was on the FISA court when they granted warrants to spy on President Trump's campaign. This is the judge who handled the Kevin Kleinsmith case, an FBI lawyer who lied to the FISA court to help get those warrants and was given a slap on the wrist by Judge Boasberg. Not my words, the Wall Street Journal said it, because it was. He was a member of the bar, lied to a court, and got some probationary sentence. So now this judge said, turn the plane around, and now he's been assigned the Hegseth case. And I'm just asking, do you think Judge Boasberg should recuse himself from that case?
What does due process actually mean? And should Judge Boasberg be impeached for saying that the Alien Enemy Act of 1798 doesn't apply because we are not at war and we have not suffered an invasion by a foreign power? My colleagues are calling for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg. Has there ever been a federal district judge, a federal appeals court judge, or a U.S. Supreme Court justice impeached because someone disagrees with the content of their ruling? So, respect for the separation of powers is intertwined with respect for due process of the citizens. The gentleman from California essentially invited us to accept the deportation of someone from America without any due process at all, which the administration has admitted was a mistake because now he's hypothesizing that person belongs to a different criminal gang and engaged in other different hypothetical crimes. And obviously, the reason why we have due process is because we can't try these cases in the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives. But just reading from a court document here, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia is not a member of, nor has any affiliation with Trenta Aragua, MS-13, or any other criminal or street gang. Although he's been accused of general gang affiliation, the U.S. government has never produced any evidence to support this unfounded accusation. He has no criminal history. He's never been charged or convicted of any criminal charges in the United States. So who knows? That's why we have due process. This shouldn't be just fodder for cable TV. We're talking about people's lives here. Professor Shaw, what does due process actually mean? And should Judge Boasberg be impeached for saying that the Alien Enemy Act of 1798 doesn't apply because we are not at war and we have not suffered an invasion by a foreign power?
The core components of due process are straightforward, right? And it involves some notice and an opportunity to be heard, right, to make some sort of case in your own defense prior to deprivation of life, liberty, or property. So that's in the Constitution. Due process applies to every person, not just to citizens. And due process doesn't look identical if we're talking about due process in the context of potential deportation or due process in the context of, a change to your Social Security benefits, right? Due process is deeply context dependent. And all Judge Boasberg has ruled as a preliminary matter in this case is that some sort of process has to be afforded before this potentially irreversible act occurs. Judge Boasberg has not ordered anyone released in the United States, has not objected to the detention of the covered individuals, has simply said provide reasons and an opportunity to respond. And
follow the law, right?
And follow the law. And it seems from public reporting as though there is real reason to believe that errors were made.
My colleagues are calling for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg. Has there ever been a federal district judge, a federal appeals court judge, or a U.S. Supreme Court justice impeached because someone disagrees with the content of their ruling?
We have no tradition of impeaching judges based on the contents of their rulings.
We impeach them for bribery or corruption or habitual drunkenness on the bench. Speaker Gingrich, by the way, do you agree with the Republicans and with Donald Trump and Elon Musk who are calling for the impeachment of these judges? That's a yes or no.
Yeah. I actually agree with Jefferson that impeachment is a cumbersome and difficult process, virtually impossible to achieve, which is why Jefferson—
So you oppose the impeachment?
Which is why Jefferson abolished 14 courts, because you could abolish—
Okay, Professor Shaw, forgive me, you remember the 5-minute rule. I've got no more time. It's a yes or no question, and I didn't get an answer from you. The Chief Justice Roberts has said that the correct response to disagreement with a district court decision is to appeal. I just heard Speaker Gingrich call this a judicial coup d'etat, and he said the Chief Justice should stop lecturing the rest of us. Who's right? Is it Newt Gingrich or is it Chief Justice Roberts here?
In this instance, Chief Justice Roberts. We have no tradition of impeaching judges. Appeal is the remedy for disagreeing with the district judge. Or if it's a statutory ruling that's wrong, Congress can respond, right? If it's if there's a bias or misconduct issue, there are disciplinary processes and complaints that can be brought against judges. You can seek to recuse or a remand to a different judge. There are many remedies our system affords if there is some sort of problem with the judge presiding over a case. But impeachment has never been in that toolkit.
Do you believe that there has been a conspiracy for a coup d'etat among 34 U.S. federal district court judges appointed by Presidents Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump?
No, as you said, I think these judges are simply doing their jobs.
The only comparable case I can think of here is the impeach Earl Warren movement after Brown versus Board, where there were racist segregationists who wanted to impeach Earl Warren because they did disagree with the content of his opinion. What happened with that? And do you think that he should have been impeached?
As far as I know, there were non-impeachment resolutions introduced at that time. There was rhetoric, there was critique. And to be clear, criticizing judges is absolutely healthy in a democracy. I am not suggesting otherwise. But this is already a pretty serious escalation to have seen these resolutions introduced. I really don't think they should go any further.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Professor Shaw, so was Judge Boasberg correct when he said turn the plane around?
I think that protecting the jurisdiction of his court...
That wasn't the question. Was he correct when he said, turn the plane around, bring the guys back who harassed Ms. Romero, drove her out of her home, harassed her neighbors, shot her car? Was he correct when he said, turn the plane around, bring those individuals back to the United States?
Based on the record before him, I think that was an absolutely defensible decision to have made in the time-pressured condition.
Ms. Romero, what do you think? You agree with the professor and with the judge? By the way, three of those individuals on the plane, Thomas Murillo Pena was wanted for kidnapping in Chile, was in the Denver area where they got him. Javier Vargas Lugo, attempted kidnapping, was in the Denver area. Nixon Azusa Perez was in the Aurora area. He may have been one of the guys who harassed you. Do you think that plane should have came back and brought those individuals back to the United States?
I feel safer every time a plane is loaded up and leaving this country.
Yeah, the previous member from California talked about your riveting testimony. One of the lines you had in your testimony that got everyone's attention was, quote, there are no government programs to grant citizens temporary protected status from imported gangs in our country. Amen to that. There is none. And that's why this is so important that we move these people out. Mr. Speaker, should the judge who's been assigned the Hegseth case, Judge Boasberg, should he recuse himself from that case? And understand the standard, I know you do, Speaker. The standard is a reasonable person. Would a reasonable person believe that this judge can't be impartial with this case? And I would just remind you of a couple things. This is the judge who was on the FISA court when they granted warrants to spy on President Trump's campaign. This is the judge who handled the Kevin Kleinsmith case, an FBI lawyer who lied to the FISA court to help get those warrants and was given a slap on the wrist by Judge Boasberg. Not my words, the Wall Street Journal said it, because it was. He was a member of the bar, lied to a court, and got some probationary sentence. So now this judge said, turn the plane around, and now he's been assigned the Hegseth case. And I'm just asking, do you think Judge Boasberg should recuse himself from that case?
I think this is a classic case where the Chief Justice should intervene. I mean, when you have a blatant, continuing record of prejudice, that judge should not be put in charge of a case. And as I said earlier, I'm not for going through the whole process of impeachment because I think it's at a practical level not possible. I am, however, for using the potential capacity of the Congress to simply defund, which Jefferson did and which clearly is possible. But I think what you just described is illustrative of why I use the term coup d'etat. You have a small group of people who believe that they have the right to arrogate rejecting the American people and doing whatever they want and cooperating with people who clearly were behaving illegally. I mean, that's one of the great tragedies of the last 6 or 8 years is it's the government which has been illegal. It's the FBI which was illegal. And how can you possibly have the rule of law when the people in charge of the law are illegal? I think in that case, you raise a very powerful point.
Mr. Larkin, should Judge Boasberg recuse himself in the Hegseth case?
Oh, I don't want to offer an opinion about a specific case that I'm, know only.
Do you think Judge Boasberg, based on what the speaker just said, what I highlighted, think Judge Boasberg has a bias against President Trump and what he's trying to accomplish?
That's just phrasing the same question another way. I don't want to comment on a pending
That's what we do in Congress. That's what
yeah, I know.
A lot of time.
Yeah, when I was an agent, we did the same thing to see if we could get the suspect to say something
How
different.
about this, Speaker Gingrich? I think you're exactly right. We have 3 avenues to address this. We can do legislative, which we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to pass Chairman Iss's bill, which says that some district judge injunction doesn't apply nationwide. We may want to come back with another bill that says automatic appeal to the Supreme Court, what you've suggested, and we're looking at that very thing. Second, we have oversight, which is what we're doing now. We're highlighting how ridiculous some of these decisions have been. Yeah. And third, what you pointed out is we got the appropriations process. The ultimate power we have, Mr. Massey's right, the power of the purse, we should use it. We should use all 3 of those avenues to make sure the will of the people, we the people, gets accomplished.
Well, my personal view is that if you were to pass the ISA bill tomorrow, you just sent a very clear and compelling signal to the Chief Justice
Sure did.
that he had better get out of lecturing the Congress and get into managing the judiciary, or he's going to be facing a real crisis of the system and a real erosion of judicial authority.